Namaste everyone and welcome. Today's topic is on reincarnation, which is a really fascinating subject. It's a deep subject and it's super important for us to have a really clear understanding of what reincarnation is actually all about. So we'll begin first with the explanation of reincarnation, the word itself. So re means again, incarnate means to be inside flesh and blood, carnal. And reincarnation, therefore, is to be again inside flesh and blood. So that is the meaning of the word reincarnation, to again take on another material body. So a lot of times people have a bit of a hard time understanding how reincarnation works because they identify themselves to be this body and wonder how on earth all that works, was I somebody else before? You're always eternally the same person. You don't change, your mentality changes, your mind changes, your actions change, but you are internally a person, a spiritual being. And at this point in time, we have this particular material body on. In a previous time, we've had different material bodies, but we're the same person. And if we're attached to the material world and we still have a karmic reaction due to us, we will take on another material body in the future. And each body that we take on, we identify it to be ourselves. So if we've got the body of a dog, we think, I'm a dog. If we've got the body of a bear, then I'm a bear. If we've got the body of a human, I'm a human. And so it's really important to understand that we're actually that living being or that life force, that spiritual energy within the body. We're not this external physical body. The body changes, but we remain the same. We're the same person. We remember some of the changes. We remember things that happened to us maybe 10 years ago. And the body we have on now is actually made of different particles. We mentioned that in one of the earlier talks in the series. So this is important to understand. That's the foundation of understanding reincarnation is to understand that you are a spiritual entity, a living being, just temporarily covered by this material body. So what is reincarnation? Why do we reincarnate? And what determines what type of body we have is really a science. And it's a science, the science of self-realization is to help uncover our true nature. And our mentality is what determines what type of body we're going to take on. So if while I have a human form of life, then I live like an animal, then I don't need to take on a human form next time. If I'm just using this extra facility of the human form, if I'm not using that, but I'm just basically eating, sleeping, mating and defending, then the animals do that also. So you don't need that extra facility that you have with a human form of life, which is the ability to question, who am I? Why am I here? What is this world about? Making decisions, what is going to be helpful for people, engaging in some service for humanity and so on. So if I don't use that, then I don't need that. Material nature will not give me that facility, at least for some period of time, so that I can actually go down into a lower species of life. And many people don't like that idea or don't even consider that idea. We just think of at least taking on another human form, but there's actually 8,400,000 different species of life, and there's no guarantee that I'm going to take on a human form of life unless I'm really careful about the activities and the attachments that I make while I have a human form. Ultimately, the idea is to not reincarnate again. It's called a wheel of samsara, reincarnation. Samsara, a wheel. Repeated birth and death. I take on one body, born, live for some period of time, maybe have some offspring, the body dwindles, death comes, out I go, here I go again, another body, go through the same thing all over again. So this is actually really unnatural for the spirit soul. The spirit soul belongs in the spiritual world, having an amazing, blissful, exciting time, not here in the temporary material world. But when we're here, we usually become very attached to circumstances, to different things, and definitely to other people or animals. And if those attachments are incredibly strong, and they're what takes our focus, that's what we love and that's what we're really attached to, then we're going to want to take on another material body to have those experiences again. But when we start to see that, hang on a minute, each time I take on, each time I take on a body, I create attachments to other living beings here. You know, whether it's family members or spouses or pets, we become really attached to people in this world. And then when we have to leave or they leave us, we experience so much heartache, so much pain. It's like, you know, a person who's going through a broken heart, the pain is indescribable. You know, they feel like I can't live without that person in my life. So our attachments are really very strong, and we can't become detached. Attachment is the nature of the soul, but it's what are we going to become attached to? And if we keep placing our attachment on to another temporary form that an eternal spirit soul is wearing temporarily, if I become attached to that form and that person, they're only going to be in my life for some period of time, and that relationship is going to finish, and then we'll go through the whole thing again, and then again, and again. So the great sages talk about reincarnation as being a painful experience. They talk about it as being a really non-desirable thing to go through. And their job, when their teachings, whether it's with scripture or whether that's them in person or the great spiritual teachers of the past, their focus is trying to help us understand, I am not this temporary physical body. I'm the eternal spirit soul, and I am part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, and my attachment and my love needs to be redeveloped for that Supreme Person, our Supreme Friend, who we've forgotten, we've been away from for so long. We've forgotten that eternal, perfect, loving relationship, and we keep trying to find it here instead, on a person who's here temporarily. So reincarnation means we're just going to take one body after another. The idea is to try and understand what reincarnation is and make an effort to redirect my attachment. Obviously, we're going to love those people in our lives, our spouses, our kids, our parents, whatever, our pets. Going to love them, but we don't need to be attached to them. We can have our attachment and our love placed on the Supreme Person, and then everyone else will see as part of that Supreme Person, and we love them as such. And we try and love them unconditionally. Don't have conditions on those relationships. They can be eternal relationships as long as we're seeing them as soul-to-soul basis, not as body-to-body basis. So reincarnation is to again be inside flesh and blood. And there's some subjects that are really intimately connected with reincarnation, and that is karma. Karma means action, and the actions that we engage in is going to determine what type of body we take on. So you can't separate the two subjects, reincarnation and karma. So karma actually means action, and for every action I engage in when I have a human form of life, I am responsible for those actions. The animals are not responsible for their actions. They're just living according to their nature. In a human form of life, it's a special facility we have. It's considered to be a higher birth, in the sense that all living beings are equal, but we have higher facilities. And so the human form of life, we are responsible for every action that we engage in. And then we're going to have to experience the reaction to the actions that I did. So, a gross kind of example, if I punch somebody, I'm going to have to experience that punch back sooner or later. The same amount of pain that I cause somebody, I will experience it back. The same amount of pleasure or happiness that I do or engage in for somebody else, I will experience that back to the exact amount. There's no such thing as, oh, it's so unfair what is happening to me. I am responsible for my actions, and whatever's going on in my life, I'm reaping the results of actions that I have engaged in previously. So we can change our way of dealing, we can change our attitudes, we can change our lifestyle, and we can change the focus of our life. So instead of it being acting for myself, what I want to do, how I want to enjoy, we start to think of us in terms of our eternal spiritual identity, and we try and then make a decision. Is this action, is this activity going to be helpful on an eternal level? Is it going to be a spiritually enlightening experience? Is it going to help free me from this wheel of repeated birth and death? Or is it an activity that's actually going to help bind me to this material world, to further entrap me in this world? Sometimes it's described how, like a cocoon, is like a protective web, if you like, for the caterpillar. But a spider also spins a web, and that is to entrap, some innocent creature. So, there's webs that webs for protecting and webs for entrapping, and encasing in a negative sense, right? So we want to be able to become free from this sort of web of material life and live a life that's actually really harmonious and spiritually uplifting. But we need to know what kind of activities are going to do that, and well, hang on a minute, I don't hear about reincarnation at school or at university or on TV or in the newspapers or anything. I remember when I was about 20 or so, I went to talk to my father about reincarnation, and he dismissed me in the first sentence and said, if it was true, it would have been in the newspaper or on TV. That was the end of the conversation. So we never talked about it again. I never brought it up again. So, oftentimes that's people's reaction is, well, how do I know it's true? But the information is actually handed down through the great spiritual teachers and through spiritual text. I can't make up my own truth. I don't try and climb my way into what's true, or I think it's like this, or I think it's like that. That's kind of irrelevant. It's like, it's not a matter of what I think, or if I think it'll be like this. It's actually trying to harmonize myself with actually what is true, what is real, what is the reality. And throughout the ages, the great spiritual teachers have taught the reality of reincarnation. Some people have had out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences where they become very aware that I'm not this body. Those people who have had near-death experiences talk about leaving their body and sometimes seeing it there, but going into another realm that is just like totally amazing. Not everyone has amazing experiences, but a lot of people that talk about it have had totally amazing experiences. So they don't feel afraid of death anymore because they know, I'm not that body. Sometimes it's like they've been in an accident or something, and they're looking down at their grey corpse, and they don't want to go back into that body. It's like it looks foreign. I'm happy. I'm fine as I am. In fact, I'm more than fine. I'm actually super, super happy in this other dimension. But they've come back to this material world, and some people have told other people about their experiences. And so they don't have this fear anymore about death because they know, I'm not going to die. I'm simply going to leave that body behind and this whole scene. I'm going to leave it all behind, and I'm going to go somewhere else. So people have often experienced with their near-death experiences that it transforms their life to one of being more loving. They've experienced such unconditional love when they've left their body. Then when they come back, they want to share that with others. And so that is actually what our true nature is, to be loving and to love and to be loved. So when we redirect our desire for love and our need to be loved to the Supreme Person, we try and find out more about the Supreme Person, then we don't need to reincarnate over and over again, because our activities will not cause more karmic reaction. They'll be free from karmic reaction. It's called akarma. Akarma means activities that don't cause any karmic reaction. They're activities done in the service of God for the welfare of others. Those activities we won't reap any more karma. If there's no more karma to reap, I don't need to take on another material body. Okay? So it's a simple kind of science in a sense, and yet it's really deep, and it puts a lot of responsibility onto us learning more about reincarnation and karma, and trying to harmonize our life in such a way that we will become free from the cycle of repeated birth and death. We'll become free from the cycle of reincarnation. And when it's time to leave this body, at the time of death, then we actually go home, back to the spiritual world where we belong, and no more reincarnation, no more taking on, sometimes the body of a caterpillar, or sometimes the body of a dog, or sometimes the body of a human. There's so many different species of life, and we might go, well, I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm having a good life. We don't know what's going to change next. And sometimes people go, well, it's not that bad being in the body of a dog, or, bird, or, dog or cat. They get to sleep all the time. But, if you have a careful look at their lifestyle, we had a cat when I was growing up, and, they would start to molt a bit in the spring, and they're losing all this hair, and when they're washing their body with their tongue, which I think must be, I wouldn't want to wash my body with my tongue. They're washing their body with their tongue, and they're swallowing all this fur, and then they vomit it up, or, to get to eat, they have to put their whole face in a bowl of raw meat. It's really important that we actually look carefully at what's going on in that species, so that we go, oh yeah, actually maybe not. I don't think that's such a good idea after all. We should try and elevate our consciousness, not go down to lower species of life. So sometimes people have gone, well, like you're talking about heaven or hell. You could look in your compost, if you have a compost out in your garden, and, you lift the lid off and you see the creatures in your compost bin. To me, that would be considered a pretty hellish kind of life, crawling amongst some rotting vegetables and so on. So, there are different dimensions, but the main thing is for us, we have a human form of life now. We have the opportunity now to move forward, not go back down, but move forward and to become re-established in our true identity, our true nature as a loving, eternal spirit soul in the spiritual world. So we can talk about this more, and feel free to ask any questions because it is a pretty deep subject. Thank you very much. Namaste.